Are you tired of losing matchups against AKs? Do you find yourself reloading after every kill? Do you prefer to play casual since premiering competitive is too scary? Then try out the COD Gun, one of the few guns where you can actually aim down your sights for once. Outrange AK users, get called names in the chat, spray your way to easy wins. Available to all CT players for just $3,300. Blood call right now and we'll throw in a free P250. It'll come in handy when you need to eco next round, since you'll be broke after buying this thing. Available only on CT side, must reload after every kill, skill not included. First, let's learn some background history on the AUG. While the AUG has been present in all the previous Counter-Strike installments, it's never been quite in the same spotlight as the AK and M4. Not finding its place in the meta, it's largely been ignored for well over a decade. However, that all was about to change one fateful evening. The events that followed after February 5th, 2014 can only be described as a massacre. However, for those of us that did survive, we prefer to call it AUG Week. AUG Week is somewhere between an $850 pistol that can one-shot someone and a $300 automatic pistol. Where one was fixed within 48 hours, the other after several months, this update lasted exactly 7 days. But make no mistake, this is quite easily the second worst update to ever hit Counter-Strike. This update contained the following patch notes: improved SG and AUG rates of fire, and improved SG and AUG scope control. These changes transformed the AUG, and it basically became a Negev with a scope on it. After quite possibly the most CT-sided games of Counter-Strike we've ever seen, a week later, the changes were reverted. Along with that update, they finally gave the AUG its iconic scope that we all know and love today. Aw, isn't that cute, guys? Please try to forget about this entire past week. You know what? Here's a free t-shirt for you guys too for being such good sports about it. The only time we'd ever see the AUG be this meta again was in October of 2018, where, after Valve's history of god-awful brain-dead oopsies updates, they wanted to make the players feel silly for once. So they lowered the price of the AUG to just $3,150, making it only $50 more than an M4. This update served only one purpose: to prove that Counter-Strike players are scared to change and are hard-locked into the meta. And, for once in Counter-Strike's history, Valve was actually right! Players slowly found themselves using the AUG over the M4 after realizing just how good it actually is. And not just in matchmaking, but in professional games as well. And it remained this way for 5 months until its price was eventually returned to $3,300. And it was done with the most passive-aggressive patch note ever. Now that players have had an opportunity to learn to love the AUG, we're returning the weapon to its original price of $3,300. Now let's look at the available skins for the AUG. The AUG has a very polarizing collection of skins available for it. And by that I mean, most skins are worth only pennies, or worth several $100s, with very few skins in between that. Some of these skins include Storm, your first ever drop you got playing Counter-Strike; Chameleon, hey guys look, I bought a red tier AUG skin; and Akihabara Accept. Fucking weeb wait, these are worth how much now? Now let's briefly dive into the stats of the AUG. Available only on CT side, the AUG costs $3,300. Holding 30 rounds, with 90 in reserve, it's on par with the other assault rifles. Firing at 600 rounds per minute, it has the exact same rate of fire as the AK-47 and the M4A1S. However, this is where the similarities end. With its very high armor penetration, it easily beats out not just the M4, but also the AK-47. At close range, its time to kill is tied with the A1S, and is beaten out by the A4. However, at long ranges is where it naturally shines, taking only 5 shots to kill, versus 6 shots in both the A4 and A1S. Now let's learn how to use this right-clicking Rambo effectively on the battlefield. Just like Call of Duty coming out every year, this gun comes out the millisecond I get running one-tapped by an AK. People call it the COD Gun not just because of the fact that you're always scoped in when using it, but the fact that it's only bought by noobs. Interestingly enough, bots also prioritize buying the AUG over the M4. Huh. Most don't even consider the price difference a factor in the first place because they're too busy debating whether they want to buy the A4 or A1S to even consider the AUG. Not to mention that the community as a whole looks down on AUG players. Not due to the fact that it's only bought by noobs and bots, but because it has a scope on it and lets you ADS in a game like Counter-Strike, which is far too scary for big brain Counter-Strike players. Speaking of ADSing, the AUG comes equipped with a scope, where you gain a 3x magnified zoom whenever you right-click. But more importantly, using the scope lowers the gun's recoil. Naturally, this magnified view lets you engage enemies at a further range. This gun is basically designed for mid players, and is a great alternative if you can't afford an op and don't want to be a bot with a scout. Because of the scope's strength, the AUG lends itself to a more passive and less aggressive playstyle than the M4. This unfortunately makes the AUG not the greatest weapon to retake sites with, which definitely puts the AUG in an awkward position. It's best bought by mid players, but the mid players ironically are going to be the ones having to rotate and potentially retake sites. But the AUG's one saving grace is that it can one-shot to the head at close enough range. While it has locked-in laser-like accuracy when scoped in, the AUG's biggest downside is its unforgiving hipfire recoil. While not a bad recoil pattern, it's simply unfamiliar to most players who spend 99% of their time spraying with M4s and AKs. If you do decide to buy the AUG, using the follow recoil crosshair does help alleviate the lack of muscle memory when spraying. Not just for hip firing, the follow recoil setting also works when scoped in. This helps in full auto panic spraying, but more importantly, lets you know how to control your bursts since the dot will start to bounce at the end of your spray when you should stop. Because the AUG's laser-like accuracy, it's best to hold very tight angles, and works especially well if you play off angles the Ts won't be expecting. If you're gonna buy a pussy gun, you might as well play like one. My favorite strat is playing whack-a-mole with your peaks and popping out periodically when the Ts aren't expecting you to be there.
Playing a game of whack-fuck here. Whack! Fuck!
And while it doesn't lower aim punch directly, the scope also makes it a lot easier to control aim punch effects. Most AUG players don't notice this because they're either playing casual or naturally always buy armor when buying a rifle. Because of this, it actually makes the AUG shockingly effective as a glass cannon buy, especially when played at a range holding a tight angle.
I had no armor, by the way.
I put the AUG at the top of A tier. Much better than the M4 defense, but much harder to use for retakes and aggressive plays to gain map control. And as updates have shown, the $400 price difference over the M4 is the single biggest limiting factor, and is what prevents it from being a meta or S tier weapon. So, that's all there is to using the COD Gun. Subscribe and tune in next time as I show you how to use the new MP5, and comment down below which guide you'd like to see next. Oh, and remember, just pray you don't get Ferrari points.